Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. Man, we're getting some good news today from multiple sources. We've got three good pieces of good news today from, first, a really big Second Amendment person, someone who's been fighting the battles for the Second Amendment against a tyrannical regime in Washington State, is going to be the chairman of the Second Amendment Foundation. That's first piece of good news. Second one, while I am of the libertarian ANCAP type person politically nowadays, I believe that the government is hosing us all, and we all kind of feel that way. Most of us who have lived through what we have in the last 3 years, we know that the government sucks. But with what's going on in Congress right now, there's a potential for a shutdown. Now, I am of the volition, and I believe that we all should be of this volition, that them shutting down the government is a good thing, because any time the government shuts down and can stop themselves from doing action that is eventually probably going to hurt everyone is a good thing. But let's go off of what is really cool about that. What is super cool about the shutdown is that the ATF and FBI agents will be furloughed, and they will not be funded for a while, as long as there's a shutdown, that is. What does that mean? That means that every FBI agent and every ATF agent that would go infringe upon your rights and knock down doors and do whatever, they're going to have to sit and wait for a while. And to me, that is the best news that we could get in a long time, because we've had the ATF consistently writing rules that go against Chevron deference, that should be passed by Congress. Maybe we need a pause for a while, and maybe a shutdown is exactly what we need. You know, being the ANCAP type person, where I firmly believe that the government being inept is a good thing. They're already inept, but being further hamstrung so they can't spend money and they can't do something. What is going on is Matt Gaetz has actually came out and said that these omnibus spending bills, which we all hate, anyone who thinks about this stuff, because what happens with an omnibus is there's these giant bills and they're all tied towards spending for the government. Well, in those bills, they add pork, which is, that's bad. But they also add those little tag-in lines like, hey, by the way, we're going to sneak this gun control in here. Or we're going to sneak this other rule in here. Or we're going to do this backdoor because we're going to tie it all to this one giant package for funding for the entire government. And we'll get it snuck through. Okay? They do this all the time. They're doing this with the SAFER Act, which I mentioned last night, which could help a lot of people that had their rights stripped for using, a plant, get their rights back. So for them to start stripping down omnibus is good for us, because in the Second Amendment community, it's inevitable that they'll do something really cool in one bill, and they'll add that last little bit in there that'll screw us in that same bill. And if Matt Gaetz gets his way, and it looks like he's getting his way, they're going to start breaking up these omnibus bills so that they're smaller and that more scrutiny and more debate can happen over each bill. Okay, that is the second piece of good news. The third piece of good news, which I mentioned last night briefly, or this morning briefly, is that it's the Bonta case that's in California. That's a magazine ban. He's actually the same case. It's an addition to that case, so there's a second case, is actually the one for assault weapons. So I knew that there was going to be a tie-in there, or possibly going to be a tie-in, but thanks to William Kirk at Washington Gun Law, which he's a great guy if you want to follow someone that's really a lawyer in the 2A community. He lives in Washington State, and he updates about everything nationally. Okay, he's a great resource for this podcast and getting the word out to get everybody in the Black Rifle Operators Union and New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union informed on what's going to happen or what things we could look at. That and Four Boxes Diner. This is if you're a legal geek, if you want to watch that. If not, tune in and I'll try to break this down the best way I understand. So what I was going on about with the Bonta case is that they've already won, and it'll have to go before a full panel now with the the magazine ban in California. So it's already looking like, with great surety, that magazines are going to be regular standard capacity magazines will be restored to California residents. That gives us great legal precedence for any other state like New Mexico that keeps trying to push these to say no. Okay, the same thing's happening with the assault weapons ban. So if you know that if you've ever bought a rifle, a black rifle of any kind, from any website and then had it sent to your local FFL, there's always a California and a New Jersey option. And what they do is they neuter them. They make them change the stock so that they're not definable with a pistol grip. If it's in California, they have to have a bullet button, which means you can't just hit the magazine release. You have to use another tool to push the button to release the magazine and then to extract the magazine. That becomes onerous and becomes really a pain in the butt, especially with like a Kalashnikov or an AR-15. So what this would do is it would strip all that crap out and say that an assault weapon or a normal black rifle would be allowed in California. And that leads us to that next piece of great news, is that gives us that ultimate legal precedent that when other states try to do this, that we have a legal leg to stand on and say, look, you can't even do this in California. This is illegal. And now we have the chance to say, you can't get rid of black rifles. Now that is, to me, extremely good news, because that means we have a hell of a lot bigger stick to swing, especially like Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, Firearms Policy Coalition, FPC, all those guys that are continually fighting, even the NRA. This gives them a lot more legal hooks to go to court and win. The Bruin decision was a huge one. That means that they had to read it in the context of historical precedent, historical law, which means that they have to look at back in the gap when the country was first made. This weapon, the Brown Bess or whatever muzzle-loading device or muzzle-loading gun that was alive at the time, was state-of-the-art. That means that they have to keep it in that context. That means that we are, and as we've always said, and everyone in the Second Amendment community knows, we are allowed to have weapons of war. We should be allowed to have weapons of war. We have to have that to fight tyranny. And that's what the whole point of the Second Amendment was. It wasn't anything to do with hunting. And the militia itself is the people, not some regulated group that the government controls. But the people of the United States are the militia. And with that, we got to keep all states tactical. As Colion Noir says, we have to keep the states tactical, because if the minute we give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Look what our awesome governor's done in New Mexico. She's tried to do that in Bernalillo County and Albuquerque, and it's blowing up in her face, and she's facing impeachment. By the way, go check out that website. Just Google impeach Governor Michelle Grisham. You'll find the website. There's a petition. Sign it. Get your name on there. It's floating around Facebook too. There's 2 petitions. There's one that's change.org. I'll be honest, those change.org ones that I've seen before when we tried to impeach her the last time, they do little good. Find the other one. Okay? Let's get her impeached, not just for the Second Amendment stuff she's done, but all those businesses, those mom and pop businesses in New Mexico, they got screwed because of COVID. And let's just be honest, New Mexico has gone way downhill even since when Susana Martinez was our governor. Like, share, subscribe, be great. Have a good night.